Yes, thank you.
Whatever you can, whatever you're able to do. Okay, Todd, why don't you jump in? You're muted, Todd.
Jim, I don't know what the process is to share a PowerPoint.
I have, you might just be able to do it. If not, I have it. I'm sorry, Jim, can you just read the verbiage on the agenda?
Yep. Sorry. Let me go back to that. Yes, 1 second here. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting will be conducted via remote means. Members of the public who wish to access the meeting may do so in the following manner. The Zoom is listed. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, and public participation in any public hearing conducted during this meeting shall be by remote means only.
You okay?
All right, Todd, please go ahead.
All right, I'll give you a buzz about an hour. Bye, Mike. Bye.
Right. Todd, I can share. Do you want to try? See if
So I have it up. I don't know how, the last time I did this.
look up, do you see the share screen button?
Yep.
Try that.
There you go.
There you go.
All right, we can
Okay.
see it.
Good. All right, great. So obviously this is a FY23 Police Department capital expense request for our annual cruiser replacement schedule. Nothing really new here. We do this every year. The only thing that really changes sometimes is how many cruisers are we really looking for. So this year we're looking to replace 4 based on the capital project request that was submitted. And just to, I'll run through these slides real quick so we can get kind of down to what the fleet is and where we're at operationally. As part of the comprehensive fiscal management policies of the town, the department is seeking to continue with a regular replacement cycle of cruisers so as to promote a systematic replacement and acquisition schedule. That's what we do every year. No secrets there. I do want to touch on the Green Communities Act because I know last year there was a lot to do about whether or not we had to purchase hybrids. And interestingly enough, at the last town meeting, we had a discussion about whether or not we should purchase an all-electric vehicle. But I do want to emphasize that, we are looking to purchase hybrid vehicles when they're commercially available. And that's really what the Green Communities Act criterion 4 requires. There is an exemption for police cruisers unless their market availability allows. So, that's really where we're at with that. I mean, we actually, our commitment, the department is committed to purchasing hybrids as long as it's commercially available. We currently have 3. We're actually waiting for 2 that came from March town meeting. We still don't even have those yet. They were ordered right after town meeting. We haven't even taken delivery of them yet. It's just such a backlog. It's really creating a problem. Plus we have, since the special town meeting authorized the purchase of the all-electric vehicle, we have submitted that order as well. God knows how long it's going to take to get it. Right now, we theoretically would have 5 hybrid interceptors plus an all-electric vehicle in our fleet. I think that's pretty significant improvements over the last few years. I do want to remind everybody that part of the policy is recycling vehicles. We are able to recycle the police department's vehicles as long as it's more fuel efficient than the vehicle it's replacing. So we have repurposed them in the past, a couple of them. There is some hardships as far as they don't have any rear interior to them because all that gets taken out when they put in the single cell and all that stuff. So that is a little bit of a hardship, but we are willing to recycle them. We do get a small trade-in value if we trade them in, but if there's a town department that needs a vehicle, we're more than happy to forgo the trade-in and recycle it to another department. So the status of the fleet right now, this is every vehicle we have. These are September numbers. So they're about a month and a half behind. I updated this a little while ago, so you can see as the mileage chart flows, you can kind of see how some of them are kind of grouped, where you might have 2 and then 2 and then 4 and 3, and so when we look at the mileage, you can kind of see how a replacement schedule might go. The one thing this doesn't take into consideration is idle time. A lot of these vehicles have significant amount of idle time, and what Ford says is it's basically if you drove 30 miles an hour, so every hour of idle time is equal to basically 30 miles on the engine, not the drivetrain, but the engine. So if you included idle hours into this equation, as far as the engine hours go, it would be significantly more. The one thing I do want to stress, and Kim, did you give them the sheet that I sent you, the Westborough fleet at the top with the estimated replacement years?
Yes,
Yeah, okay. So,
that was a second email that went out.
That's what that is, okay.
yeah, so I don't know if you guys have that available. But it kind of lays out, what we're looking at over, through FY 23, 24, and 25, which doesn't completely match what I had submitted some time ago as far as the capital project request form. I was really hoping to get back to 3 cruises a year. Historically, we did 3, sometimes 2. We've increased the fleet quite a bit due to increased staffing. So it kind of throws a different mix into it. And I don't think 3 over the next couple of years is really going to work. If you have that sheet in front of you, it kind of shows, what my expectations are going to be moving forward. So probably through at least FY 25, I'm going to be looking to replace 4 vehicles a year. The issue comes up with, so down the bottom here, this Taurus, it's a 2008, over 116,000 miles. I'm going to be looking to replace that in FY 23, along with, there's 2 vehicles in here that are supposed to already be gone, by the way. This one down here, number 125, that's part of the FY 22 replacement. And this 123 right here, the 2017, that's part of the FY 22 replacement too. So those will become new hybrids and they'll move back up here to the top of the list. 23 is, again, the Taurus. 131, this one was 2017. Police Interceptor. What's the other one? 128, 2017 Interceptor. And 126, another 2017 Interceptor. So it's this group right here that I'm looking to replace along with this Taurus. So the issue becomes, we have in our fleet some what I call single-use vehicles because they're used by one officer. For instance, the Expedition K9 vehicle, it's got over 96,000 miles on it in September. We're going to need to, I'm probably going to be looking to replace that in FY 24. That was actually granted to us by Central Mass Homeland Security. We've reached out to them to see if they'd be willing to replace it, and the answer was no. So we're going to need to accept that and move forward, because we've committed to a K9 program, and even though that vehicle was granted to us, we're now going to be responsible for replacing it. But that's a single-use vehicle. Only one officer uses that. So I still have the fleet, and I'll switch to the next slide. This is strictly the police utilities. all but 2 of these are line cars. They're the marked cars that go out, you know, almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We do try to give them a rest period, at least like 8 hours off. But it becomes problematic when, you know, unfortunately we have a cruiser accident. It ends up being in the shop for God knows how long because they can't get parts. Now the people using that cruiser get shifted to another cruiser. But we also, when I talk about vehicle replacements, these are really the cars, the line cars that we need to focus on. So while I replace, you know, maybe 3 of these a year, I have to go back and look at this Expedition. I have to go back and look at this Jeep that's a detective car. I have to look at this Dodge that's a detective's car. Those are all single-use vehicles. The good thing is once they're replaced, they're going to last a long time. They're going to be in service, you know, a lot longer than the line cars are. Generally, the line cars, these cars in here, so this is the outlier down here, this 125, that's supposed to be replaced already. Again, these cars are supposed to be replaced already. So if you look at some of these other ones, they're really 3 to 4 years and we're maxing them out. So if I can get through the next few years replacing a single-use car along with 3 utilities, you know, marked vehicles, line cars, hopefully we can get to the point where we're back to, you know, 3 a year, hopefully. But the fleet has increased significantly due to increased staffing. We've increased responsibilities. There's more take-home cars now. So, but that's really the status of the fleet where we're at right now. And, you know, this is the goal. Replace 4 of our oldest cruisers with hybrids. They are used often 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So even when, you know, we give a vehicle a rest period, we generally assign about 3 officers to each car. So based on their schedule, we try to give it a rest period every day, but then we have details come in. A lot of the details require cruisers. So next thing you know, it's sitting out on a detail idling for, you know, 6, 7, 8 hours. So they really do get used almost 24 hours a day. And we do obviously purchase we follow all the regular procurement rules. As lately, we've been using the Greater Boston Police Council contract. We pay a subscription to that, and that's basically how we do it. We purchase them all through MHQ. I think Kim also passed on to you a letter from MHQ that they've sent out. So again, like I said, the ones we ordered in March, we don't even have yet. One's actually being built right now, but we haven't taken delivery of it. Delivery times are extended beyond 30 weeks just to get a cruiser. And as far as the upfitting, the equipment, it's extended beyond 16 weeks. MHQ will not start to build a car until they have every piece of equipment to finish it. Last year, we had a car sitting over there. They had the car, it was our car. It sat in their lot for 2 months while they waited for a push bumper. They had every other piece of equipment to go into it except a push bumper. So that's kind of what we're dealing with. We're really falling behind. But I think getting 4 cars this year is going to help. Hopefully they can start getting them in faster and getting them built. So with that, I'll just see if there's any questions.
Questions from anyone on the committee?
Deputy, this is Andrew. I wonder, we've discovered from another group that has previously taken police cars and been able to reuse them, that they may be not able to do so going forward, owing to differences in mileage and some of the restrictions from green community efforts. I wonder, you've done a terrific job of assembling all your fleet information. Would you be able to make it easy to see miles per gallon with each of those units, so that as we look at the whole picture, we can better understand what is transportable to, you know, other departments and what may not be?
Yeah, so, thank you, Andrew. That's an interesting question because, we know what the sticker says on them. It gets whatever, 24 miles a gallon. A lot of the newer cars obviously have all that data internally and, you can search through the control panel to find that. That's certainly something we can work on. I haven't done that yet. So, I had a meeting the other day with my internal group that the team we put together to manage our fleet. And one of the things that's going to be curious is to look at the hybrids that we've had in service and see what the actual mileage per gallon really is. We haven't taken the steps to do that, but I know the vehicles have the capability of producing that data. So that's something we can work on and can try to put together some type of report if it interests the committee.
Thank you. May I ask a quick follow on that? I don't want to take questions from other folks.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Well, thank you. Grateful and appreciate the effort. And really, it's an effort in terms of tracking miles per gallon usage. It's an effort that we'll be able to leverage across the rest of the town and how we're trying to organize, the capital arrangements. I did have a question though, and this really it came up as part of the conversation with the electrical vehicle, and that is we have 3 hybrids on as part of the fleet right now. Are we able to track or identify or be able to assess the true cost? And you were talking specifically about the mileage capacities, but are we able to assess true costs of those vehicles so that we can compare the true value or non-value of those vehicles compared to standard vehicles?
What do you mean by true cost?
In addition to the gas you put into them, there's going to be replacement parts. There's going to be, when I think electrical vehicles, I know that there's the possibility of having to swap out entire battery units. There's, attendant and, whatever support costs that would come with running a vehicle when you think about total cost of ownership, a way that we'd be able to try and manage true comparisons, because I think that's a step that we're waiting to hear from the green community that I for one heard a fair number of people approach me after the town hall meeting to talk about, and that is the ability to provide informed assessments as to the decisions we're making. So I guess the question would be at this point, do we have a way of tracking true total cost of ownership for each of these types of vehicles so that we can make those informed decisions?
Well, I guess by true cost of ownership, you'd be talking about actual gas mileage and maintenance.
Yes, sir. I think those are the big ones.
Yeah. So
Kim, a comment on that? You are muted, Kim. Sorry to interrupt, Todd.
I think Todd, I don't want to interrupt you,
No.
but Andrew, this is something, as we've talked about evolving our fleet management, the ability to have software so that we can track everything. Part of the challenge right now, we're pulling information from a number of places. We could certainly pull from our accounting system where we have expenses that go to outside vendors. We can pull from the, we have the gas DPW, the gas tanks, they gas up at DPW. There's a separate system there we can pull information out of. And then the piece that we admittedly probably don't track as well, when work is done internally, there's a labor cost that maybe doesn't show up anywhere, but we would need to capture that. And my understanding is that there are software packages out there that if we implement as part of our larger fleet management overhaul would give us these numbers.
Yeah, and I have a question. This is Steve Durrett, about whether or not we can get engine hours out of the new vehicles in terms of that characteristic as well.
Yes, we can get engine hours. I didn't add it to the fleet sheet that I had sent out. But yeah, they're capable of capturing engine hours, yes.
Kim, go ahead.
Can I just, and back to Andrew's original question, in terms of the mileage, being able to see the mileage for the vehicles and to determine what might be able to be handed down. That you're not seeing that information, but internally we're having discussions. You know, Todd is in regular contact with me about vehicles that will be replaced and that might be available. And we do have some discussion and kind of do an assessment of whether that vehicle, you know, could that have a use being repurposed? And then I think we did this, I don't recall if it was last year or the year before. We had a vehicle on the capital plan, and ultimately we did not purchase a new vehicle with free cash. We were able to not use that money, and we did take a vehicle from the police department. So even if we have a vehicle, for instance, the building department's vehicle request shows up as free cash, even if we move forward with that and anything changed, we'll kind of continue to assess that right up to the time of purchase.
Thank you. I am grateful for the greater understanding. Is the suggestion, though, that the capital committee might not be the right place to have that information? And I'm saying this because I certainly don't want to overreach what we should be doing here. But I also recognize, and I feel badly that we're sort of picking on the deputy because he's here, and A, he has a large fleet, and B, he's done a really good job of assembling a lot of the information. And one of the things information does is it begets questions for more information. So, you're a victim of your own success in this regard. But I think that line of sight to these sorts of decisions, and the fact that we are still very new into the recommendations that are going to come out of the Green Committee or whatever committee is going to be assigning this, these are all still forming. And I think to ask the question is to hope that we are going to start thinking about how we can align these things going forward so that we can properly track and discuss these in the right forums.
I think those are great comments, Andrew. I'm not certain that will be the job of this committee. I think that clearly we're identifying new needs, and I think as we're hearing that these replacements are needed, I agree with you. I think that information, it could still be useful information to us. I mean, I think the key is they have a history of making every possible attempt to repurpose these vehicles. I do think the green issues are going to make it harder because until we maybe get up to those hybrid vehicles being replaced, you may now have difficulty, indeed showing that they're improving mileage. Although if they're replacing an older vehicle, maybe that's still going to happen. So I don't know that some of that work will be the work of this committee, but I think your points are really good, valid points for wherever that work is done.
Yeah, and I think it's valid for when this comes to town meeting too. And that's the question to ask. And I do think Steve's question about the engine hours and Todd, your comments, I think going forward where we have that's going to mean a lot more. And you talked about it, that's going to be a lot more than just mileage, because those engine hours tell a better story because of the fact of the idling time and all that.
Well, if we have those hours by that 30 mile an hour or by that 30-mile equivalent, Todd, that you mentioned, then we could show the equivalent. I mean, the equivalent hours might be 200,000 miles or more.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'll be honest. So there's I don't have it in front of me, but I can get it for you. There's kind of a national standard with police vehicles as far as average time for idling per vehicle. And I know that I've compiled the data before. I think I did it last year, but you'll see some of these vehicles almost triple in mileage,
right?
When you start adding the idle time.
Yep. No, I think that answers the story that we hear at town meeting, because some people look at that and say, hey, I drive my car and it's got 180,000 and you're getting rid of it at 100. Like, well, no, it's really 300, not.
I just did a quick calculation at 24/7. It may be, and certainly not there every single hour, but at 24/7 by the 30, that's 262,000 additional mile equivalent per year. On top of the actual miles.
We also do have to understand that these are emergency response vehicles. They're not
they're driven hard
drivers. Like, these cars are responding to emergencies, and our officers need to be safe and have vehicles that are, up to the proper standards to be able to do that in a safe manner. And as well as keeping the public safe,
Absolutely.
Our accidents not only affect the officer, but it could cause an accident that's involving another motorist too. So
I do think that
Well,
number
and-
is probably worth addressing at town meeting. You know, I mean, it means these vehicles really have 300,000 equivalent miles plus. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Steve, you had a comment?
I was about to pipe in with something, so I'll let Steve wait, but I did have one more thing to build on.
That's all right. I can let Andrew fill in while I figure out how to unmute myself.
Go ahead, please.
I think that the point I want to try and make, though, is that I want to make sure we're focusing on the efforts where we need to. And I don't believe I look at the deputy and he knows when he needs a new car. So I'm down on that. And I don't think I think that there's going to be a committee that needs to be able to be knowledgeable and informed, and they can say what all these elements are that put together, so that they can define like the criteria of the right kind of car and what we're willing to overspend for if we're going to do it for green purposes. But I think where we need to keep a line of sight to is that we have a shell game that we're playing with, not just the deputy here, but all of the different departments. And when I hear another department needs 4 vehicles, and suddenly everything that we've been told about the distribution of cars gets kneecapped because there's other data we have to keep in mind. I think that's where I think there may be some relevance to what we can see to help inform where we will throw our weight in terms of the urgency of something if we think we may be able to move a car around from A to B and buy another year of time potentially before the larger capital investment. So in support entirely of what you're saying about how much we should be focusing on here, but also think that there's things we don't need to do. And I can't wait till the systems are in place to provide us with the knowledgeable experts to provide that input. So thank you.
Yeah, and my comment is simply, I mean, the need is obvious, and I think anybody who's been involved with town government for a long time understands exactly what's needed, or at least is pretty close to understand what's needed by the police department in terms of cruisers. Actually, if you will, my question had to do with the uninitiated at town meeting who, in effect, have follow-up questions associated with the statements that are made, such as engine hours and what the mileage is and all that stuff. And to the extent, as Andrew has said, that we can get that information and provide it and know then between cars, what they look like, because obviously when you guys trade them in, they're in pretty tough shape inside and outside. And certainly the safety of the officer who's in it is the prime reason why we do what we're talking about right now. So, I'm positive as well. I don't have a problem with replacing 4 cruisers as long as the data shows that, in fact, it's a good thing to do. And it's safe. It allows the officers to be safe doing their job. So I'm positive as well, just like Andrew.
Okay.
Well, I'm happy to provide more data. I apologize for not having that tonight for you.
It's okay. That's why we do this, Todd. So, and Kim's great about getting anything forward to us. So if you have an opportunity, anything you think would be useful from the comments, we're happy to receive it.
Yeah, well, I'll talk to my team. We'll work on compiling those hours, and I think you'll be shocked, quite frankly.
Well, yeah, we don't want it to be like the set out west.
Well, I mean, kind of one of the reasons why I didn't really add it in is like if you look at the regular street miles, they're significant. By the time these vehicles actually are going to get replaced, it's going to be significantly higher than what that
Absolutely.
graph showed. So it's kind of like piling on when I add the engine hours on there, but I'm happy to do it. If knowledge is power, the more information we share, the more informed we are, the better prepared we are to make decisions. So I'm happy to do that for you.
Yeah, one of the things about true engine hours that we would get out of this is simply the ability to do the metrics associated with fuel burned, while it's idling versus fuel burn when it's actually moving. To do the better metrics for a vehicle that may, because of the engine hour piece, really be a dog as far as fuel consumption goes. So that's another reason for the kind of metrics that we're talking about to have in the background. It allows the town to actually manage the fleet as would be best from an overall end of life cost of vehicle, per year, which I heartily support what Andrew was talking about to be able to do that. So, and the reason, there's a second reason behind this, and that is, as you know, the new school at Fales is going to be pretty much providing all the electricity that it needs based on the systems that we've installed there. And that means that there's going to be a surplus of electricity based on other deals that the town has. To that extent, it might very well be that an electric car is much cheaper to run based on that available energy that we have to buy, whether we use it or not, going forward. So I think these metrics will help us sell more electric vehicles for the town, because I think ultimately the trade-off between, let's call it nominally, I wouldn't say free electricity, but certainly electricity is much more efficient in cost than, say, diesel or gasoline. And I'm looking forward to that answer being available. The other thing that happens with these things is that they also can be batteries for the town as well. As a matter of fact, we had a discussion the other day where an all-electric Ford pickup at night can actually put energy into a house rather than take it out of a house, and reduce peak charges, which we as a community, in terms of schools as well as the town's consumption, we pay a demand charge, which is something different than what a normal household does. So there's a lot of different things that can happen with the right data to prove out that it's worth buying this versus that. Enough said. Thanks.
All right. I know that Pat and Jason are waiting, so unless there's further questions, we're going to let Todd go. Any other for him? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Have a great evening. And unless you have any interim comments, Kim, I will pass it over. Pat or Jason, I'm not sure who is intending to go first here. If it's you, Pat, you're muted. There we go.
Yep, sorry,
No worries.
not that quick. So Deputy Fursky is actually going to do our presentation, and I'm going to play support to him today.
Excellent.
Good evening.
Good evening, Jason.
I was wondering, would it be possible for me to share my screen? Got a
Go ahead.
presentation that'll, I always get nervous doing this with my iPad because I can't see you guys now. All right.
So while he's setting that up, I'm just going to talk for a second, folks. So thanks for having us tonight. And you're going to see some changes that weren't necessarily on our capital plan before you got a picture of them for this meeting tonight. And just as we move forward through particularly the satellite fire station, just please be open-minded with that and just hear us out, because there's some opportunities that are presenting themselves down the road, and we're just trying to get ourselves aligned to take advantage of a pretty significant sum of money. So, thanks.
Thanks, Chief. So I believe I know everybody on the committee, but just in case, my name is Jason Fursky. I serve as your Deputy Fire Chief. I thank the Chief for allowing me the opportunity to present our capital items to you tonight.
Jason, we are not seeing your screen, just for your information. Have you shared it?
That's going to be a jam. Share content.
If you need to and want to email it to me, I can do it.
Here we go.
All right. I forgot to hit the go button.
I thought you were going to have us buy a boat.
We did you a favor and we got Homeland Security to do it for us.
There you go.
Good segue, eh?
Thank you. Give me 1 second. All right. Now can you see me, Jim?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you again for the opportunity to present to you tonight. I was going to review the current year capital items as well as some new items to the capital list, and then any additional items that are currently sitting on the capital list, and then gladly entertain any questions. So as is typical with Chief Purcell, he likes to try to fund all of our opportunities outside of asking the taxpayers to fund things. So we're constantly evaluating, chasing after grants, researching grants. You might have saw earlier this week, we got a grant for just under $13,000 for a turnout gear dryer that's coming from a nonprofit organization, something that is a need of the department that we're funding through an outside source. In that same regards, when the ARPA request came out, we placed a total of 8 items onto the ARPA funding. Basically all of our capital items that are sitting now, the SUV replacement, engine 3 replacement, the radio tower infrastructure for both police and fire, as well as an ambulance replacement. Then we had some other non-capital items that we had put on the list. It looks like based on today that they may not fit the criteria. So it looks like as of right now, they're going to remain as capital items, but just wanted to kind of highlight that the chief is constantly having us evaluate and pursue other opportunities without having to come to capital. So our FY23 requests that are sitting in front of you today are the 4-wheel drive SUV replacement and then engine 3 replacement. So with the SUV replacement, we're trying to replace a 2012 Ford Expedition. It's recently had a significant amount of out of service time. We're having a difficulty chasing down parts. I believe we sat for about six or 7 months at the beginning of the year trying to chase down a fuel issue and the availability of parts. I'm not a Ford guy. It's a Ford. It has electrical issues. We're constantly chasing electrical issues with this truck. We've got it to the point now where we actually have to have, when the vehicle's parked, the hood's up and there's a major main disconnect for the power that comes off the battery. So in order to actually put the truck into service, you have to make sure the hood's up, flip this switch, and then hop into the driver's seat and hope that it starts. So it's really kind of at the end of its life, and it's not adequate for emergency response. And then the other issue being that majority of the remaining town departments are underneath the green communities. Based on the gas mileage, I don't believe that this would qualify for any departments to receive it as a hand-me-down. And that vehicle, I was just looking at the mileage. So I can't get the engine hours to pop up, but we're just under 80,000 miles. And of those 80,000 miles, there was a significant volume of time that vehicle spent idling while on scene. That particular piece of apparatus doesn't display engine hours. So I think the Deputy Police Chief laid a pretty good plan out in front of you as far as the importance of replacing vehicles. And unfortunately, I can't get you the engine hours on that vehicle. So what are we going to request in its replacement? We're looking for a Ford Explorer hybrid. We need to stay with the Ford Explorer because of the amount of equipment that's carried on the vehicle. We haven't found another hybrid that has the same setup or the ability to handle the equipment that we carry. This is going to be the first hybrid model for the fire station. We're fairly excited about it. It's going to increase our gas efficiency. The current vehicle that it's replacing would be currently sitting at about 14 gallons a minute. That's new. It's 10 years old with a lot of public safety mileage on it. So I'm going to guess that the 14 miles per gallon is probably not where it's sitting right now. The new Ford Explorer, from the research that I was able to find, they're estimating about 27 miles per gallon with the hybrid model. And then we also looking to stay with the vehicle because this is going to be an all-weather response vehicle, something in the four-wheel drive, all-wheel drive category. Little change with the capital request for engine 3. As it sits right now, we came before you in March of last year looking to replace a 1996 fire engine that was probably well beyond its service life. We finally were able to kind of negotiate with the manufacturer. We got the pricing the best that we possibly could. We placed the order as soon as practical after the March town meeting. We just finished up our pre-con meeting with that manufacturer, and we have a delivery date of we don't know when. As of right now, they're predicting about 24 months before we'll see the vehicle. they've had significant delays, just like everybody else with the supply chain, the number of orders that they received. Everything is causing significant delays. Engine 3, as it sits right now, is a 2005 E1 custom pumper. It has 85,000 miles on it. The engine hours are just under 8,000 engine hours. So again, if you use that same formula that Deputy Minardi was referring to earlier with 30 miles of driving, our idle time, we're well over 300,000 miles on this vehicle. This one, unfortunately, was before our corrosion enhancement or corrosion protection program that the fire chief implemented. All of our vehicles, starting with engine 4, which was the 2016 piece of apparatus we purchased, have a undercoating spray that's applied to them. This one, unfortunately, was already had significant corrosion at the time that we implemented this program, so it wasn't eligible. So we're seeing significant corrosion issues and deterioration of the frame, which is also at the same time causing multiple electrical issues and challenges to chase the electrical issues with this piece of apparatus. Additionally, in 2019, you may remember seeing pictures. This was the piece of apparatus that took a 50 or 60 foot tall pine tree across it during the middle of a snowstorm. We lost the truck to service for probably about 4.5 months while they took care of the cab. It was borderline being totaled, but they were able to, I believe it was, Chief, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it was in the ballpark of $40,000 worth of damage.
No, 83.
$83,000. Sorry. I like to be an optimist, not a pessimist. So about $80,000 worth of damage to the piece of apparatus and significant out of service time. So why are we asking you to replace engine 3 now? I think historically we've held on to fire trucks way too long. The 1996 truck is well past its service life and meeting the needs of the community as it currently sits. As our old capital budget sat, we had engine 3 on the docket to be replaced FY23. We're dealing with 2 issues that we're battling right now. One, we're dealing with a supply chain issue, meaning that the trucks are taking 4 and 5 times longer than they normally would take. I believe. I believe that when we ordered the E1, the 2016 engine, from the time that we placed the order to take delivery was somewhere in the ballpark of about 6 to 8 months. With our most current apparatus purchase, we're probably going to exceed the 24-month mark. The other challenge, and it's the challenge that we've had across the board with all of our capital items, is putting a price tag on everything. All of our manufacturers, and you may have seen it in the packet that Kim sent out earlier, none of our manufacturers will hold prices. All of the prices are basically got a taillight warranty. They're giving you 30 days or until they increase the price. And a lot of that's got to do with availability of parts, supply chain issues. So really pinning down costs has been a big challenge for us. As it is, we received a price from the manufacturer to move this purchase up to current times. If we would order the apparatus today, they gave us a price, which also included a discount because of the fact that we had just recently bought an engine from them. But then the caveat that they threw on was that they expect to see a 10% increase as of January 1st at the latest. So at the escalation cost, 2 more years going up another 20% on the cost of the engine, that has an impact of anywhere from an $80,000 to $160,000 increase in the cost of what is already an expensive piece of equipment. And then the other kind of, I guess I'll call it my attempt to tell you why we believe that this is a good idea, is that even though we would be placing the order in March or thereafter, we would still not estimate that we would still probably anticipate getting the vehicle somewhere around the FY25 mark, which is where we would have normally sought after funding for it. The big difference being is that we would probably have seen at least two 10% price increases that we're aware of. And then the blurb I have off on the right side of the screen, as of 10/18 of 21, CNBC, they're still talking about the supply chain and not seeing it get any better. So our fear is that we're going to go to try to order the piece of apparatus that's critical to our operation in 2025. And where the piece of apparatus is at the end of its service life, and we're going to have to hold on to it even longer, and deal with whatever issues may occur. And really, in the reality of it, is most likely pay a premium on top of what we're already paying. I guess before I go any further, I'll entertain some questions on those two. Those are probably our two pertinent items to today. Unless, Jim, you want me to continue going on and go through the satellite power station.
Might be best to ask questions as you go, so people don't. I know I have my only one question on that is I see the funding is 2 and 6. Is that some of the funding comes from the money that we put away every year and build up for these types of purchases, and some from free cash?
Not on this one. I think that Kim, correct me if I'm wrong, they chose not to fund that line last year.
Correct. We depleted it with the last major purchase.
So I'm just wondering where the other is coming from. The funding source shows, free cash and other. I was just trying to figure out.
I think we were just unsure at the time about ARPA.
Okay. All right.
If
When
we
did
have,
this paperwork.
yeah, as we have further clarity and are clearly understanding what is and is not eligible under the ARPA funds, we can adjust that before we finalize it in the budget document.
Great. Okay. That was my only question on that item. Any others before Jason continues? All right, Jason, please go ahead.
All right. So this is probably the one that's got you a little in the shock and awe state. And there's a lot of different components to this. So you're seeing for the first time the satellite fire station come on to the capital plan. It's nothing new. We've been talking about it for a while, but there's some reasons why we're getting to the point where it has to show up on capital. So the satellite fire station, it's not coming out of the blue. It's probably about 20 years overdue. It was highlighted in our 2018 organizational assessment. We have a high volume of emergency calls on the east side of town. Up in that area, we protect 7 hotels. We have 2 large healthcare institutions, which keep us busy. We have large housing developments in process. All of our major highway access is up there. And then we have, on the horizon, we have some continued business growth and industrial growth in that area. The area of town does not meet our standards for response time. So we are outside of the ability to provide adequate response time within a set period of time. It's 6 minutes or less and 90% of the time. Critical component to improving cardiac arrest survival rates. So there's a very prevalent statistic that your survivability of cardiac arrest is really dependent upon early intervention, early advanced life support, and early transport to a tertiary or hospital. Statistically, in our town, survival rate for cardiac arrest drops significantly when you get to a 1.5 mile radius outside of town. This would help us improve and cover the east side of town, therefore decreasing our response time and hopefully increasing cardiac arrest survival rates. Basically, we're looking to improve the quality of care that we're providing to that side of the community. And then the other big component, which is going to help globally across the town, is that it's going to continue to help improve our ISO rating, insurance services organization. They're the ones that basically set the insurance ratings for the town. And as we continue to improve, you may have seen we've dropped from a 4 to a 2. We're on the cusp of reaching that 1. This is a critical component to helping us obtain that 1. And then again, going back to our 2018 organizational study, sorry about that. The recommendation coming out of that study is based on.
Yeah, maybe. Did you have a good day?
Sorry, I don't have the ability to mute the radio. Based on GIS call density mapping and response times to those incidents, beginning the process of determining the potential location of a future facility The entire process of building a new facility can take anywhere from 5 to 10 years.
Talk to you then.
We're in that window from the 2018 study. So again, highlighting the fire chief's commitment, the Westborough Fire Department is committing to pursuing all sources of funding to decrease the cost to the taxpayers of Westborough. We're trying through a multitude of different sources. One of the initial sources that we hit was in 2021. We obtained a $25,000 source of mitigation funding to provide a space needs analysis, to identify potential building lots, and to come up with conceptual drawings. This was our step one. We used this to basically say, hey, this is how big of the building actually has to be. This is how big the lot has to be. And this is the potential designs based on a handful of lots that are available in that area. We're also looking at listening through the grant opportunities, the potential coming down the road in 2022 and 2023. There's grant opportunities that could cover up to about $7.5 million in construction costs. And then continued working. We're really pursuing as diligently as we can any mitigation opportunities as far as continued growth and development up in that area. I threw this picture in here because the fire chief loves helicopters. That's not an actual conceptual drawing of our station, but we broke it down into what do we need to do to make this project happen. The first step is we need to figure out what size building we needed, kind of how big of a lot it needed to fit, and then theoretically what the building would look like. The second step, which is where you start seeing it populate onto the capital items right now, which is in 2024, you see that we're seeking funding for basically engineering, oversight, project management, and design costs, surveying, any of the stuff that we need in order to get the project moving. Concurrently, step 3 follows right behind that with looking at land procurement. We want to make sure that we have the ability to go out and assess a piece of property to make sure that it would be an actual buildable lot and that we're going to move forward. And then step 4, which we're approaching at 20 FY. So we're looking for the land in FY 25's capital. And then in FY 26 would be the actual construction of the building. Again, these are probably somewhat dynamic timelines. What our goal here is that we have a lot of opportunities coming down the road. We need to start actually formulating our plan, have direction, have an idea of where we're going. Our step 1 has kind of given us an idea of how big the building has to be. We can estimate construction costs based on that. It also allows us to kind of peek into land's tough to come by up there. Having an idea of what we need, how it's going to fit in, the available land that's out there, but also as new opportunities arrive and we may have the opportunity at mitigation opportunities through potential projects down the road, knowing how we can integrate this need for the community into future projects, and then trying to get this project to move forward, albeit 20 years probably later than where we really should be. This side of town has experienced a significant growth over the years, and I think unfortunately, I'm sad to say that we're behind the ball in trying to keep up with this. So we've laid out this plan. We think that this is probably the best course of action to follow. We've been working diligently behind the scenes to alleviate as many of these costs as we can. And just because it's appearing on the capital budget doesn't mean that we're going to stop pursuing all of these other opportunities. And I think it's also important to point out that we have what for all intents and purposes looks like 2 shots at securing that grant. Like I said, it's about $7.5 million towards construction cost, which would cover a significant portion of the project. We're going to have 2 shots at that grant in 2022 and 2023. So the hopes is that as we start to line things up, trying to continue to eliminate as many of these costs as possible. Before I go on to anything else, was there anything that we wanted to discuss on the satellite fire station, Jim?
Jason, my only question, then I'll ask for others, is will this station be sharing equipment and vehicles from the existing station, or will you then need to fill it with trucks and equipment?
So our intent would be to take and relocate assets from down at the fire headquarters and move them up to that fire station. The belief would be that our current fleet would cover our anticipated growth as of right now.
Okay. Any other
Jim, that-
questions on this item for Jason?
You asked my question, Jim. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah,
Anyone
mine
else?
too.
That's everybody's question. They all ask us that. At the end of the day, we have the resources to split up our equipment out of the fire headquarters and put what we expect to be able to put up on that side of town, which would be an ambulance and an engine company.
Okay, great.
So basically we have everything we need. We just don't have it in the right places.
Yep.
What about staff?
So we're even before this is done, you'll see us come forward relatively soon for more staffing. We do have a strategic plan that the town paid for. We intend to keep pushing for that plan forward, and that's going to call for 4 more personnel in about I think a year and a half or so. When that study was done, we were doing 3,700 calls a year, and they predicted some small growth after that. We're going to blow by 5,000 calls this year.
Okay. So that timing of trying to bring them on, that may be commensurate with when this is getting going. So that would help in theory. Okay.
Maybe.
That would be ideal.
All right, Jason, please continue with those remaining items if you would.
So then the remaining capital items, was everything that's been on the capital list for the last few years. In FY24 and again in FY27, we'd be doing the ambulance replacement. FY24, we have a 1999 forestry unit, which gets a moderate amount of use. We'd be looking to replace that with something comparable in size. And then FY 2025, this is on the tail end of our capital right now. Our communication infrastructure, meaning for the Public Safety Communication Center, our towers, our repeaters, the radio communication information that's the core of our infrastructure is we're kind of limping it along. We're at the end of our service life. Again, we're trying to get as much life out of it as we possibly can, but we're also in discussions about the potential for future regionalization opportunities, which would again most likely cover a majority of those costs. So we're doing our best to maintain it and keep it functioning the way it is, with the hopes that someone else is going to pay. Someone else is going to pay to replace it all. And then I guess at the end, if we have any other questions, gladly talk about anything.
My only other question in the presentation we had from you, Kim, there was a forestry truck. Is that no longer going to be part of the request?
Nope. So that's Jim. That's on FY 2024.
Okay, great. That's right. Okay, I didn't see that down below. Any questions while we've got these gentlemen here from anyone on the committee?
Yeah, Jim, just one question back on the communications. And I think I got it, Jason, but is that handling dispatch, or is that dispatch or not dispatch and just regular communications for the entire station? What is that communications associated with?
So that's the heart and soul of our infrastructure. So it's the dispatch center, dispatch consoles, it's radio infrastructure as far as the towers go, our repeaters at different locations. So that's actual radio. Basically, we transmit out to the tower, and then there's a unit at the tower that transmits out. I am not.
The answer is both.
Okay. So I guess the question was, in terms of any potential regionalization, would that cover all of it, do you think? Or is there still, I guess my question is, would there still be pieces that would be necessary for the station?
The hopes is, I'm sorry, go ahead, Chief.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, regionalization opens up a whole lot of new doors and avenues that basically, depending on how the center comes together, the infrastructure and the build out would be taken care of by the center. There would be some costs down the road based on how, again, there's a plan A, there's a plan B, and there's a plan C on how that comes together, and depending on which avenue it goes, kind of just deflects the costs or covers the costs.
Great, thank you.
Could you speak for just a moment about what regionalization means in terms of opportunities here? Because I think I hear it in the context of the communications, but what does it mean about the communications, the deployment of resources to address potential emergencies?
So we're talking about two separate things. The first component we're talking about is the regionalization of communications. So the state has a very aggressive initiative to eliminate the number of PSAP stations, which is the public safety answering points. So as it sits right now, there's, I don't know the number off the top of my head. There's 351 communities in the Commonwealth, and there's several hundred public safety answering points. If you go to the state of California, I believe, Chief, there's 3-4 that cover the entire state. So they're trying to really consolidate the way that communications is handled to one regionalized center. With that, it means that the state currently, they distribute out funding to cover some of the costs of these public safety communication centers to the communities, but they're only partially funding. A lot of the funding opportunities that are coming up right now, as you regionalize and you join in with other communities, the opportunity for funding and offsetting the costs of operating these centers increases significantly. Again, there's a couple different avenues that can be pursued, whether it be a state wireless center, it be a regional communication center, and depending on how everything formulates, kind of dictates the amount of funding opportunities available. As far as regionalizing and as far as emergency response, if you're talking about the satellite fire station, what that's going to do is going to decrease the amount of time it takes us to get up onto the highway to service any of the facilities on that side of town, as well as everything out on East Main Street and those neighborhoods out there.
Yeah, I think the regionalization of service, I wouldn't call it regionalization, but it's like that, is really probably the mutual aid agreements that we have with all the surrounding communities, which is used daily, I believe.
Sure. I think the important thing, Andrew, to remember is the fire department isn't just the fire department. We have a lot of different hats. So when we're talking about different capital requests here, they're often for different components of our own department. So we run the ambulance, we run the fire department, we run the dispatch center. And when he talks about a public safety answering point, what that means is it's a 911 center. So not every city and town, take a small town out west, they perhaps don't need all that infrastructure to answer 911 maybe once per day. So they're trying to consolidate all of those centers. And what that does, if we agree to consolidate with the other 6 partners we're kind of teamed up with right now, is for what benefits this committee. A lot of our capital requests for communications equipment go away, because once we regionalize, we have to be able to talk to that regional center, so they'll support the radio towers, which are a very important component of our system. We have one on Fay Mountain, we have one at the MEMA bunker on Oak Street, and we have one on top of 300 Freiburg, which is the Westborough Behavioral Health Hospital. So what they do, so we can utilize that, is for where you would benefit, they would take over the capital requests for portable radios, mobile radios, primarily those 2 things. And if you think you just outfitted all of your first responders in town with almost $500,000 of equipment, we were lucky to get 20 years out of our last equipment. That will not happen this time. So if you can save just on portable radios $500,000 every 10 years, it's kind of worth it. So that's where this committee would stand to benefit from that. Also replacing the voters, the repeaters, and the receivers on our towers. There's a lot that goes into that system to make it work. The system in this town is worth millions. And then also what it does for us is helps us branch out and get more of our own equipment onto other people's towers. So if we say, in theory, teamed up with a community in say Southborough, and we could put our equipment on the towers that already exist in their town, maybe we could talk on our portable radios from the Framingham emergency room, because right now we can't. So it enhances the entire system.
The other benefit
Thank you.
the other benefit would be that to Ian's point, we rely extensively on our mutual aid network. We went to Shrewsbury this afternoon for a fire in their school. Instead of having the dispatcher have to pick up a phone and call over to our dispatcher to all of a sudden dispatch us out to the call, with a regionalized center, a majority of our mutual aid partners, if we can get them to join us, which we think is a great idea, it would allow simultaneous dispatching. So it's going to speed up shorten the time distance between dispatch and arrival for us, but get us out the door quicker.
Yes, can I ask what will drive this ultimate decision? Are we waiting on the state? Has the state already said do this and you're trying to get partners together, or what makes this happen?
Chief Purcell.
So there are 6 or 7 communities right now that are already vested in this project. The study is already been done once with 3 communities. One fell off. One was kind of wishy-washy. We're all back at the table, and the study commenced last week again. There are let's see, 5 Metro West communities that all abut each other, and one from the other side of us, down in one of our neighbors on the other side.
It sounds like a no-brainer, but you have to wait for people to agree, and the state's ready if you come to an agreement.
So the study will dictate what size center we need, where it should go. They look at buildings, which you'll hear me come before the select board soon, perhaps asking to look at a building in our own town. And then from there, you figure out the finances, because there will be an assessment every year. So to operate a dispatch center in Westborough costs about $1 million a year right now. But with six people going in together, we could reduce our general assessment to that dispatch district to maybe $200,000 a year, maybe $250,000 a year. A lot of it's driven by volume, by 911 volume. And granted, some of the communities in the study are bigger than us. We actually are a busier community because of the commercial base here. We're the number 2 in the study for 911 calls received. And we're definitely number 2 for an almost close 1 to providing fire and EMS service.
Wow. Okay. A lot of information, fascinating. Anyone else, comments or questions for the chief and the deputy while we've got them?
Can I just finish up with one more thing I thought of? Because I don't want everybody to walk away wondering who's going to pay for it all. We don't pay for a nickel of it.
That's why I say it seems like a no-brainer to get people together and agree to this.
The state 911 division pays for it all. You can go on and you can read about their development grants on there. Just go to Massachusetts State 911 Division.
Great.
Yeah, Jim, I think you had
Andrew here with one more.
It's a no-brainer, but it's basically getting the network together and getting the partners to agree.
Yeah.
And standardizing and developing SOGs, and so Westborough's favorite color is red, Northborough's is lime green. Let them just be funny with that, but we all have to get on the same page and kind of decide what we're going to use for equipment, and and have some standard dispatch guidelines. Because if we all do our own thing, the center will fail, because
Right.
you'll have a host of employees and they're trying to remember who does what, when, and where. That's not fair to them or to the people waiting for us to get there.
So it's a little bit of a herding cats project.
Sure, it won't be quick. It'll be a ways off, but we think it's a worthwhile project.
Great.
So Andrew Bradley with one comment, one more question. The comment, I now have to add Mima Bunker on Oak Street as places in Westborough I totally want to visit one of these days. But the question that I had was, you mentioned the change in incidents from around, you were thinking upwards of 3,000 now down up to I think you said blew past 5,000. One of the conversations we've been having with the police with regards to their statements very much along those lines, and this is really just preparatory, is not all incidents are created the same. Obviously a fire is very different from a cat in a tree, maybe different from, the many other types of incidents you have. I would encourage you to figure out how those incidents can be captured and reported and grouped in a way that, speaks to the different needs of the town, so that we can provide informed, guidance as to where we need to see investments and where things are changing over time. So it's just a comment, really.
Sure, they are. The way we do that now, we have the Massachusetts Fire Incident Reporting System called MFERS. We have to log every single call we do. In our calls, I don't, like, there's communities that pad calls. We don't self-generate anything. That is 911 calls for service. Where are you going to see our increase in numbers? I'll tell you right now. Emergency medical services. Not going to see it go down when you build a Pulte project, over 55, age restricted. Convenient MD was open for 4 hours. We did our first call there last week. We're going to have Mass General Brigham project probably coming in. It's going to have a high EMS use, Spectrum expanding again, like that. You can't keep building stuff. I mean, I listen to I learn a lot from when I listen to my peers as department heads. When I listen to the public works director stand up and say, yeah, we'll do whatever you want, but how are we going to pay for it? It kind of goes along with our level of service. We allow businesses to come here. We allow whoever to build as long as they comply with zoning, and I'm all for business. But just remember, there's a cost of doing business. If we're going to build a 60,000 square foot Mass General Brigham facility, it's going to impact somebody, and I can probably tell you who. If we're going to build 800 units on Lyman Street for over 55, I can tell you who's probably going to be there. No, like, I can tell you the stat. We're going to be there 0.32 times the amount of units annually. That's another 210 to 30 calls a year. So really, that's where our data is, and I have it all, and I'm happy to provide it to you anytime.
That's really great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Was that a question or background noise? I think it was background.
That's our ambulance on call.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought I recognized that voice again. All right. Last chance with these gentlemen.
Jason was patting a call there was what was happening.
That's what it was. All right. Thank you very much for all the insight and information, and we'll let you two go.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Kim, I think that was it. And I know you sent us those sheets with just the more detail that we weren't able to open anytime. Any question or comments on those from you or others? They seem pretty straightforward.
Yeah, as we get closer, and I think as I send out the next batch of projects for the schools and DPW, I will make I'll take an Excel sheet and make it so you can start filling in your ratings, have all of the projects on one sheet. So when you submit them to me, make my life easier. I can just copy and paste and have multiple columns. I'll do that early next week. Just the only reminder I have, we are not meeting next Thursday. That was one of the dates we originally picked. We pushed that out to Monday, November 8th, which will be DPW and the schools and potentially Jim Robbins on a trail project.
Same time at 5:30, correct?
Yep, that's my understanding.
Okay, so 5:30 on the 8th will be the next time we'll all see each other.
Apologies to the committee for showing up late tonight, but I had to come through town on my way home from work, and it was full of trick-or-treaters. It was awesome to see, but it also was a pretty nasty traffic jam.
We don't want you running over those trick-or-treaters, Ian, just to get to our meeting.
Exactly.
We had a steady stream coming through. It was good.
Yeah, it was really good. It was really neat to see.
Super.
The only other thing I'll say, I'll send out an email and potentially propose a couple of dates. So after we meet on the 8th, that should be the last meeting where we'll hear from departments submitting project requests. I just need to map out what are after that. We'll need a meeting probably to discuss and potentially review the priority ratings, and then maybe a second meeting after that when I can package everything up and bring it back to you for your review
Approval.
before it goes into the budget document. Hopefully those are a little bit shorter meetings, but I'd like to get that first one in if we can and do the priority setting discussion before Thanksgiving.
Sounds good. All right.
Jim, I have I guess a closing comment that arises having in effect participated on this stuff for 45 years, I guess, getting to be a long time. And it's, it'd be interesting for us as a town across the board to have a proactive approach to the things that we know cost us money. And one of the things that I heard in the last couple of minutes from the presentation of the fire department, if we do certain things, we already know what it's going to cost us to provide the services for it. I'd rather see the town proactive rather than reactive, because otherwise every year we're going to spend more and more and more because we allow these things to happen to us. you know, I suppose, as we know from zoning, we can't keep people out. But on the other hand, we can be cleverer about the way we do it. And since that's the driver, in effect, for all towns' expenses is what is it that we have to provide services for? And how much will those services cost? And until we start doing that, we're going to be looking at new fire stations, new police stations, new cruisers, new fire engines, new everything, new vehicles that cost twice as much as they used to 10 years ago. And, you know, I don't know where it ends, because this idea that the taxpayers can pay isn't true. I think that's certainly true during the pandemic, that the income, based on what I've heard, at best, it keeps track with inflation. And a result of that, people cannot afford it. So bottom line on where this all goes is that the people that built this town either are going to die here as paupers, or they're going to move out because they have to. And I think we need to be more proactive in the way we take care of this stuff. Otherwise, it's just a committee like this that decides, based on what we can afford, what we're going to get, and therefore we won't get everything. So I don't know. Think about that. I guess you know, my days in doing this stuff are certainly getting limited, but you know, I mean, you guys got to live with what the outcome of this is going to be, and you know, it's up to our managers in every department to have a feeling for how we do this. And you know, there isn't any answer to it. I know that, but we at least could be proactive rather than reactive. So thanks for the soapbox.
Any comments on thoughts on Steve's comment before we go? Okay, I would then ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So move.
Second on that, I'll take your movement as a second there, Steve. And then I do need to do a roll call. Steve Durrett.
Durrett, yes.
Leah McLean.
McLean, yes.
Andrew Bradley.
Bradley, yes.
And Lisa Blazejewski. It's a long one, Lisa. I
That's
try to get
that's
it right.
okay. Blazejewski, yes.
Ian Johnson.
Johnson, yes.
And Jim Ball, yes. All right. Have a great evening, everyone. See you then on Monday. A week from Monday. Yeah, the 8th. A week from Monday. All right. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Good night,
you.
all.